Okay.
No.
Right. Okay, so we are still on this problem. We are still on the China, India, shoes, and cloth. Yeah, we have one more piece of this question left. And the question is always, if they're going to have a comparative absolute advantage question, they're going to have this part of it. And so the one part that tripped people up. We have an FRQ next week for a major grade. It's this. It's comparative absolute advantage. And you will have to determine if a trade agreement is good for each country. We're going to have a practice FRQ right after this, like in 10 minutes. But let's see how we would tell if it's a good trade agreement. So this is our table that we've been working on. Shoes, cloth, China and India, 312, 2 and 5. This only works for output problems, which I said that's why, like, if you have no idea if it's an input or output problem, it's probably going to be an output problem, especially if the next part of the question is like, what about a trade agreement? And it's for sure an output problem because you can't trade hours. Like, I'll give you 2 hours if you give me 3 hours. Like, that doesn't work. But you can trade like products. So a trade agreement will be given. Here's one that's given. One shoe is going to be traded for one cloth. And you have to figure out if this is good or bad. If this is a bartering type of thing, is this good or bad for India? Is it good or bad for China? So here's the output table that we worked on yesterday. And we figured out that India has a comparative advantage in shoes, and that's what they're going to make. And China has a comparative advantage in cloth because they have the lowest opportunity cost. So that's just the same math we did yesterday. We're just looking at like this side of the table. I just copied and pasted it onto here. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to compare these numbers of trade agreement to our opportunity costs before. Remember how I said yesterday, like, hey, get in the habit of circling the lowest numbers? Like, oh, don't just eyeball it and then write it down. Like, actually circle, because this is where that circling really helps. All right, let's just recap. Patricio, what's China making again?
Shoes. Wait.
Try it again.
Cloth.
They're making cloth because that's the title of the column here. Maddie, what's India making?
Shoes.
Shoes. Okay, let's try that one more time. Andrew, who makes cloth?
China.
And how many shoes does China have?
12.
Let's try that again. Who makes cloth and only cloth?
India.
Okay.
I said China the first time, and now
Yes.
you're saying no.
No. The second part I said no to. Okay, so let's try again.
Yes.
What's China making?
Cloth.
And how much shoes are they making?
How much?
None.
Yeah.
Because they are specializing and they're focusing on this. But China wants more than just cloth and India wants more than just shoes. So they're going to have to trade some of their cloth or some of their shoes away to get some of both. Bailey, question.
Once they stop making shoes, can they create more cloth? And do we have to find out how much more they make? Like the math of it?
Who's making what now?
Like,
China.
if China's done making shoes because they're making cloth, right?
No, remember, this is, I know what you're saying. Like now, since they focus their
Since they're
time,
specializing on cloth, can they make more cloth?
remember
Do you
that this is a
understand?
PPF curve, and these are the ends of the PPF curve, those numbers.
Yeah.
And so that is as max. If they use
Okay.
all that, this is already accounting for all of their resources towards that project. Good question.
What about the resources that they have that don't associate with cloth at all? It's not used.
Then it's not part of the question. Okay, so here's the thing. Josh, what is China going to have to buy? They're going to have to buy shoes because they're not making shoes. Morgan, if China by themselves made shoes, do you remember how many cloths they would have to give up? Say it again. 4, because remember, this is in units of shoe. Yeah, this is in units of cloth. And so one shoe for China costs 4 cloths. So like before trade, for China, one shoe costs 4 cloths.
Oh, so you can, okay, got it.
By themselves.
But now one shoe costs 4 cloths. cloth.
Now one shoe costs one cloth because that's the trade agreement that was given. Before, if China wanted to make shoes, it would lose 4 cloths. Now one shoe, they would lose 1 cloth. And so this is a good trade deal for China because they're giving up less cloth to make shoes. So before trade, China, one shoe costs 4 cloths. After this trade agreement, one shoe is costing 1 cloth. They are giving up now fewer cloths to make shoes. They give up fewer cloths to make a shoe. So for China, this is a good trade deal. Because by themselves, they'd have to give up 4 cloths to make a shoe. Now they have to give up 1 cloth to make a shoe. So for China, this is a good trade deal.
I think it's going to be
Okay. Let's see if it's good for India. It's a good trade deal for China. Let me grab my trade agreement right down here. Okay. Brooke, what is India making again?
Shoes.
They're making shoes. Do they have to buy shoes? No, you don't have to buy the things that you make because you make them. What are they going to have to buy? They're going to have to buy cloth. But if they had to make them on their own, what does 1 cloth cost them by themselves? 2 fifths, yeah. 2 fifths is what we probably had written. It's the same thing. 2 fifths of 0.4, it's the same thing. And so 1 cloth cost them 0.4, 2 fifths of a shoe. Now let's see what it costs. Now 1 shoe equals 1 cloth, which is the same thing as 1 cloth equal. Like you can read it backwards and forwards. They had to give up 0.4 of a shoe before. Now they have to give up 1 shoe. Is this a good or bad trade deal for India? Why? They're now going to have to give up more? I could have just given up less than a half a shoe before. Now I'm have to give up a whole shoe? This is not a good trade deal for India. They're going to say no go for this trade deal. China's going to love it because they're giving up less for this trade deal. But India, they could do better on their own. And so they're going to say no to this trade deal. Because in India, before trade, 1 cloth equals 2 fifths of a shoe. 1 cloth costs 2 fifths, or you can say 0.4 of a shoe. But now with this trade agreement, 1 shoe equals 1 cloth, or 1 cloth equals 1 shoe. They have to give up more with this trade deal? That's not something that they're going to love. This trade deal costs them more shoes per cloth. 1 whole shoe. This trade deal is bad for India because they have to give up 1 full shoe instead of 0.4 of a shoe.
What if they moved up to 2 cloths? But that's obviously.
Hold on, let me finish my thought. Hold on. What? 1 cloth equals 1 shoe. This trade deal is bad because they would have to give up 1 whole shoe instead of 2 fifths of a shoe. Okay, what?
So what if they did the 2 cloths per shoe, which is obviously not a whole one, but China can trade a lot more goods. They can get more cloth and they can produce that situation.
Does that come?
Is there anything other than just straight number that we're relying on?
No.
So if it's not exactly equal or better, then it's better.
They're looking for something that's lower opportunity cost than what they would have done on their own. So I'm looking for a number that's less than 0.4 for India and less than 4 for China. Like I can, like, okay, let's just see. Okay, let's quick little practice. This is no longer the trade deal. Now I'm gonna make something up. One shoe, I have no idea if this is gonna work or not. One shoe equals, I'm gonna try to test you a little bit.
The word test is
Three.
to make a fair trade deal.
3/4 of a cloth. Okay, one shoe equals 3/4 of a cloth. If one shoe equals 3/4 of a cloth, what does one whole cloth cost?
1/4, right?
Yeah, you would flip it. It's a reciprocal. It's a reciprocal. And so one shoe equals 3/4 of a cloth. So one cloth is going to be equal, you flip it, 4/3 of a shoe. Okay, I have no idea if this is going to work or not. Okay, so China, they care about the price of shoes. So what does a shoe cost for themselves? 4. Now one shoe costs 3/4. 3/4 is a whole lot less than 4. So China's going to say yay to this. India, let's see. India, if they were to, they have to pay for cloth. They don't have to pay for shoes. That's what they're making. So one cloth by themselves costs them 0.4 or 2/5 of a shoe. Now one cloth costs them 4/3 of a shoe. That's more than one. That's less than one. So they're still going to say no to this trade deal.
Even worse.
The trade-off
goes,
If you want to make it fair, it should have been like 2 shoes is 1 cloth.
2 shoes, 1 cloth. But let's see if it works.
Or
It
like
doesn't?
a little less than that. If you did
It's
like,
gotta be a different ratio because 2/5 is not a number that can be solved by 2.
if you did like,
Hold on. One shoe equals 3. And that means if one shoe equals 3 cloths, 1 cloth is equal to 1/3 of a shoe.
Yeah.
And so China, one shoe costs them 4 cloths, one shoe costs them 3 cloths. That's better than 4. India, one cloth
Yes.
costs them 0.4, one cloth costs them 0.333.
So it's good.
Oh, that's good for both. That's a trade deal that they would like.
Yes.
It's the best trade deal they've ever seen. And no one knows trade deals like me. Okay. So let's do some practice. Because you have to like do this a whole bunch of times before you realize. And I want to show you really one thing. If you don't circle your lowest opportunity costs, if you're like, oh, China and India, and you didn't circle it or something,
mess up.
then you get to this right here, and you have no idea what to compare it to. You're like, okay, one shoe equals 1 cloth.
Because onion.
Well, yeah, that one's underlined because I underlined it. But now, if you have them circled, you compare to the numbers you did not circle. That narrows it down of what you're looking for. You are now looking for the stuff that the losers,
They're not.
the loser numbers.
Are you? Never mind.
Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna do some practice. I want you guys to get into pairs, and then get into pairs. And once you have your pair, come grab a marker and a board for everybody. Maybe one for everybody.
Whiteboard in.
Yeah, that way everyone can write.
I got I thought you mean that.
I don't know.
Oh, you don't have a favorite? You have a favorite one?
Yeah, but they're all related. Like this is still like I love graphs. I like graphing, so I guess graphing. I
But
like
this one's like, this is trade graphing, and there's
yeah. And then next week we learn like currency graphs, so we can like okay, if they're making this and they're making this, what currency they're doing, how that affect their currency, how that affect like net exports, okay, GDP, okay, aggregate
did we
demand, okay,
talk about this
Phillips
at the beginning of the year? Yeah, so probably. Do
like
you
it's
prefer
just
psych or macro?
when everyone is quiet.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, now that you guys are all in your spots, I'm going to read you the FRQ. This was given a few years ago, I think, if I remember correctly. So we have. Okay, this diagram above This diagram above shows a PPS curve for two countries, Artland and Raylan. Using equal amounts of resources, Artland can produce 600 hats or 300 bicycles, whereas Raylan can produce 1,200 hats or 300 bicycles. A, calculate the opportunity cost of a bicycle in Artland. B, if the countries specialize in trade, which country will import bicycles and explain. C, if the terms of trade are 5 hats for 1 bicycle, would it be advantageous for each of the following? Would it be advantageous for Artland or advantageous for Raylan? Either, both, one or the other. And D, if country productivity in Artland triples, which country has the comparative advantage in the production of hats? Okay, first things first, I would put it in a table. I would do anything unless I put the numbers in a table first. Okay, begin. I'll give you about 10 minutes.
When productivity triples, does that mean that all
Productivity.
the supply increases by multiplies by 3?
Yes.
Okay, but just for Artland.
Just for Artland.
Oh, like in different order? Okay, so what are we doing? Opportunity cost? Bicycle, that's. Oh, yeah. 200.
Okay.
Son cuantas cosas sacan, ¿verdad? Entonces tienes que poner a la derecha, va abajo. Estos van abajo. Estos van abajo. ¿Cuál es?
Opportunity cost of a
Se los dos van abajo. That's whenever you start. Ah, bueno, ¿cómo tienes?
If two countries specialize in
One-
trade, which countries
Oh, wait, no.
You
One
store
hat.
bicycles.
Oh, yeah.
No, you got it.
And write it down, like, shoot it down. Yeah, you didn't use the chart.
Do I have to explain it? Because I think I'm gonna run
So they're
that.
How many times do you go through the city like How many times do we go through the city cycle? Okay, so I think we did it wrong. So around 5. Okay.
Dang it! I chose 8 to 11 as well.
That's so many times, you'd be so rested.
Yeah, I was thinking 9 just like
No, because it takes like,
Lisa.
it takes like a couple hours to go through each one. So it's not gonna be.
What about sleeping for just like 15 hours a day?
You
You didn't define.
From the fresh
You didn't define how long we were in. You didn't say he was a healthy person.
Porque bicycles por una bicicleta
Well, your bike, that's the cost of the bike. It's not the cost of the other. It's gonna be 2
o sea, sería
the cost of 1 half. So half of 100, I guess. No, it's half. So it's.
es que no tienes la red por ahí. Sí. No, eso está correcto. Por eso.
You look at the other side.
Okay.
So how do you have one? It says
Sí.
Yeah, because they can make them for already.
Okay, so C.
Oh, I guess. So would it been?
Heartland, ¿no?
So
But I mean,
it was costing now it's costing this way. Yeah. And now it's costing.
Yeah, sure.
So you can stay the same.
Sí, porque cuesta menos, le cuesta más a Heartland. No, sí, ya. Porque, o sea, si les toman por las dos,
So one half costing for the other one.
Probably did it all wrong this time.
And now, I had costing
No,
one
sí, es Heartland. Okay, ¿qué piensas? ¿Tú qué piensas que es barata? Sí, 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 sabe.
Oh, wait, so one half for one.
Heartland now has.
I know. Okay, now one half. So four.
This is half.
Yeah, it'd be like.
This Taylor, second doesn't matter.
Oh, one half.
So with the President so it's that means the same. Still right.
That look about right.
So we did it. I know this one. One more half. I know that it's half a half. Rogan, absolutely.
How long is it?
I know the first one is right.
First one's no, second one's yes. One bicycle.
We were having too much fun.
He needs to get a grocery. So we'll go over it on Monday.
Wait, don't remember what we did.
I have a video of me going over the same number of you. So I'll just post it and then we'll go over it immediately. Okay. But the first one should have been two hands. Two hands. Yeah. During B block today, we're doing comparative and absolute advantage practice. B block today.